This module covers regulatory compliance standards in Microsoft Defender for Cloud, teaching you to manage, implement, and report compliance controls, ensuring your cloud environments meet various regulatory requirements effectively and securely. By the end of this module, you'll be able to understand how to use Microsoft Defender for Cloud Compliance Management Dashboard, identify and interpret key regulatory compliance standards applicable to your industry or organization, and implement and manage compliant controls within Microsoft Defender for Cloud. And finally, you'll be able to conduct regular compliance assessments and generate comprehensive compliance reports. The primary function of Microsoft Defender for Cloud is to make it easier for an organization to spot potential problems around compliance issues that have been configured or that could prevent certification. In addition to various reporting and communication actions, Microsoft Defender for Cloud can show security standards on the regulatory compliance dashboard as shown in the screen. Security standards are a set of predefined guidelines and best practices designed to help organizations secure their cloud environments and ensure compliance with regulatory requirements. These standards are represented by security controls within Defender for Cloud and are continuously assessed to identify potential vulnerabilities and misconfigurations. At the time of the recording, there are 52 built-in security standards listed here in the product documentation, Regulatory Compliance in Defender Cloud, and I'll be going there in just a minute and showing that to you. One of the key security standards in Microsoft Defender for Cloud is the Microsoft Cloud Security Benchmark, or the MCSB. This benchmark provides prescriptive best practices and recommendations to help improve the security of workloads, data, and services on Azure and in multi-cloud environments. The hierarchical structure is 1, the standard, which is made up of 2, control areas, which is then made up of controls, which are then made up of subcontrols. And I'll be demonstrating that when I go to the portal. We don't have time to go through all of the standards, those 52 that I mentioned, but we are going to take a look specifically at the MCSD version, and we'll do that right now. So I'm going to go to the documentation, we'll show that to you. So here I am in the Microsoft Learn content for examining Defender for Cloud Regulatory Compliance Standards. This is the first module. I'm going to get in and take a look at regulatory compliance for Defender for Cloud. If you take a look at the learning path, it's got a lot of information. You'll see the imagery here is a lot of what appears on my slides. And what I want to show you is here's those 52 standards that we have available for us. I'm actually going to switch to the actual Microsoft documentation, and you'll see it looks very similar, but this is the full documentation that a subset has been taken for the course itself. And I want to point out a couple of things as we go along the way here. Those are the standards. And in here, you're going to see that it mentions several things about that hierarchical structure, as well as some of the permissions that are going to be needed. And I want to point out from an exam perspective, if you're going to take the exam, you want to make sure that you highlight default values as well as permissions that are identified within the course content or in the Microsoft documentation, because they will often be used as part of a solution in the exam answers if you decide to take the exam itself. Each security standard includes several compliance controls, which are grouped together relating security tips together. Defender for Cloud continually monitors your environment to see if it meets these controls and tells you if your resources are compliant or not. The Regulatory Compliance Dashboard provides an interactive overview of the compliance state, allowing users to get summaries of standard controls that have been passed, review standards that are applied when the selected scope is assigned, review assessments for compliance controls within each applied standard, generate custom compliance reports and auto downloads, and track compliance standards over time in a thing called the Compliance Over Time Workbook, and I'll be showing that to you in another demonstration. Defender for Cloud supports various default compliance standards, including the Microsoft Cloud Security Benchmark, or the MCSB. We have it for Azure, AWS, or the Amazon Web Services, and GCP, the Google Cloud Platform. And those are on by default. When you enable Microsoft Defender for Cloud, the MCSB automatically assesses and onboards subscriptions and accounts, providing continuous compliance information for hybrid environments. The integration with Microsoft Purview Compliance Manager allows an organization to centralize compliance management across the entirety of their cloud environments. To manage and interact with compliance standards in the regulatory compliance dashboards, users can select a compliance standard to see a list of the controls for that standard, view the subscription on which the compliance standard has been applied, expand a control to view the assessment associated with it and possible remediation actions. They can generate compliance status reports and certificates, which can be shared with relevant stakeholders and auditors. By exporting Defender for Cloud compliance status to other monitoring tools and workloads and automation, you can trigger actions when assessments change state. For example, users can configure continuous export to send select data to an Azure Event Hubs or Log Analytics workspace, and set up a workflow automation to trigger logic apps when a compliance assessment fails. Microsoft Defender for Cloud provides a robust framework for managing regulatory compliance by continuously assessing these resources, identifying issues, and offering tools for remediation and reporting. The integration with Microsoft Purview Compliance Manager further enhances the ability to manage compliance across multiple cloud environments, ensuring that organizations can maintain a strong security posture and meet those regulatory requirements effectively. For each compliance standard, users can view the scope, group of controls and subcontrols, and the compliance assessment status for resources within that scope. I'm going to go to the portal and actually show you some of these, and we'll show you that hierarchical structure of a standard, a control area, a control, and a subcontrol. Let's go there now. So I've logged into my Azure portal using my demonstration account, and I got to come to Microsoft Defender for Cloud, or I could type it into the search bar and find it. I've already got it in my quick links, and I'll just go there now. Now you'll see that I've got a number of different areas, and we've been talking about the regulatory compliance dashboard. And down here under cloud security on the left-hand side, the second item is that cloud regulatory compliance dashboard that we've been talking about. And this is what will look very similar to the slide that I was just showing you. Now, we've talked about the standards that are out there, those 52 that are by default configured. And they are things like industry standards and government regulation standards that have been published. Now, inside of the Microsoft Cloud Security Benchmark, that MCSB, we've now got the control areas, and I've got network security, identity management, privileged access, data protection. So each security area is then broken up into the security controls themselves. And so you can see that in our identity management, I've got a variety of controls, and I can get into the control details here that we'll talk about what the control is, get additional content, what are your actions that you can take against this, and the Microsoft actions if you wanted to have automation follow along. Now inside of these, this is where we're going to get those sub-controls, and this is going to get us the actual items that make up this item. In this case, use centralized identity and authentication systems. These are all the things that are being checked, as whether they be in Azure, in this case, or in AWS, or GCP. We'll also see that the status of if it's been checked, it'll appear as either green, red, or gray, which all indicates whether it's passed, whether it's failed, or if it hasn't been made available or it's unavailable at this time, it'll be grayed out. And you'll see that as we go through here. I've got some that have failed something, and we could drill in to see what was the thing that failed. And down below, I think I've got one that is actually gray. So governance and strategy, you'll see that as a light gray. So green, gray, or red. The status of an assessment reflects the compliance with the standard and can be one of those three statuses. I said it's compliant, the green circle, non-compliant, red, or unavailable, which is that grayed out, for the control that cannot be automatically assessed. The concept of shared responsibility, and I didn't point it out, but I'll point it out next time I go into the portal, of a shared responsibility in cloud computing is the fundamental principle that defines the division of security and compliance responsibilities between the cloud service provider, which in this case is Microsoft, and the customer in that shared responsibility. This role ensures that both parties understand their roles in maintaining a secure and compliant cloud environment. This shared responsibility model means that both Microsoft and your organization have roles to play in maintaining compliance. Microsoft is responsible for the security of the cloud infrastructure, while the organization is responsible for securing their data, applications, and other cloud services. And with Microsoft providing the tools and services to help organize and achieve compliance, like Microsoft Defender for Cloud, I want to emphasize that the shared responsibility is ultimately the responsibility of the organization to ensure that they use these tools and services to meet the required compliance standard. We've previously described the key features and functions of Microsoft Defender for Cloud to improve compliance, such as the continuous assessment, the regulatory compliance dashboard, the default compliance standards that are enabled by default, the integration with Microsoft Purview Compliance Manager, managing compliance standards, and continuously exporting and workflow automation. Some other things that can be done to improve compliance are, in addition to the default standards, you can edit security standards, where you can customize the security policies and controls within the default security standard to better align with your organization's specific requirements. This customization allows you to adjust the scope and the applicability of certain controls based on your unique security needs. You can create custom initiatives and policies using Azure Policies. These custom policies can be tailored to enforce specific security requirements and compliance controls that are unique to your organization. By combining these custom policies with the default standards, you can achieve a comprehensive and tailored security posture. You can generate compliance reports, where users can generate compliance status reports and certificates, which provides a high level of summary of compliance status for the selected standards based on the Defender for Cloud assessment data. These reports can be shared with relevant stakeholders and auditors to provide evidence of internal and external audits. You can either do manual or automated remediation. Manual remediation involves taking direct action to resolve specific security recommendations provided by Defender for Cloud. You go to the Microsoft Defender for Cloud, you select the Recommendations tab, and you select a recommendation and click the Take Action feature. I'll be demonstrating that again at a later time. This will allow you to individually review each recommendation and decide on the best course of action based on either specific environment or requirements that you might have. Automated remediation helps streamline the process of addressing security issues by automatically taking predefined actions when certain conditions are met. This will save time and effort by performing the same steps that a security analyst would take to investigate and remediate the threats. Here's how it's going to work. You configure an automated level. The level ranges from no automation all the way up to full automation, where threats can be remediated automatically within the required approval. Next, you set up the workflow automation. For example, you can configure continuous export to send data to an event hub or that log analytics workspace and set up logic apps triggered that will take compliance assessment remediation. Then configure the automated investigation remediation settings. This feature will then automatically investigate alerts and take the remediation action based on the predefined rules. It can isolate affected resources, applying patches, and making configuration changes to mitigate the threats. The benefits of automated remediation is efficiency. It's going to reduce the time and effort required to address security issues, allowing the security team to focus on more complex tasks. It's going to be more consistent, ensuring that remediation actions are applied consistently across the environment, reducing the risk of human error. It's going to be scalable, and it can handle a large volume of alerts and recommendations, making it easier to manage security in large and complex environments. Now, there is a way to actually use the manual early on to validate that your remediation steps are going to work. So maybe start off with manual remediation, validate that the automated process would work for you in the way you expect it, and then turn that on to an automated capability. So we've taken a look at the overall compliance dashboard. Let's go back into the portal and take a look at some of those features that I've mentioned for you, and we will dive deeper into that shared responsibility and some of the features of automated and manual response. So let's go to the portal. So we're now back in the portal, and we'll be taking a look at the other Defender for Cloud configuration values later on. But coming back to the regulatory compliance dashboard, if I had multiple standards deployed, and you saw that in the slide, there would be multiple hyperlinks listed up here, and you would then be able to click on each one to get the control areas specific to that standard. Clicking on the control area, here's that shared responsibility of Microsoft and the customer, Microsoft and customer, getting into the control details and the actions that you can trigger. Taking a look at the specific items themselves, these are the sub-controls. And so domain transfers, this is going to give you into the things like severity, how often it's going to be refreshed. I can get into the description, and here are the specific remediation steps that you could either automatically trigger or manually trigger. And this is that scope that we talked about, and I'll be covering more of that in the next module, and define all of the different scopes that we have available for us to deploy our compliance standards to. And so I can come in and see what are unhealthy resources, healthy resources, and not applicable. So this is, as you get to a large deployment, you'll be able to make those separations of the different types of resources. So before I jump back into the course content, I want to remind you that in the learning path, all the content that we've covered, there is a knowledge check, and I would strongly recommend that you go in and perform the knowledge check, and it'll ask you several questions about the content that we've covered. And if you select the items, I'm just going to randomly select, and you submit your response, not only does it give you the answers, it gives you an explanation of what the correct answers are. So I do encourage you to take those assessments to make sure that you understand the content. So let's go back into the content. So there's a look at the portal. You'll see on this slide, there's an example of the multiple standards that have been listed. You'll see that at the top right-hand side, there's the NIST SP-800 definitions and the standards that are, that standard has the control areas that are different from the other standards that have been deployed. So those are for you to use. That wraps up this module. I hope that gives you a good understanding of the overall breadth of Microsoft Defender for Cloud. And we also introduced some of the other tools, we won't go into them in this module or this lesson, of Microsoft Purview, which gets into data governance and data lifecycle management. So that's another course if you're interested in it. So thanks very much, and I look forward to seeing you in the next module.